Hey, what's up everybody? So today looking at a super common, very important chord progression and some of the fun things that you can do with it. The chord progression we're going to look at is the 2-5-1. If you haven't already, definitely check out the diatonic chords lesson in the past where we talk about chord progressions. This is one of the many chord progressions, the 2-5-1. So what does that mean, 2-5-1? Let's take the key of C just as an example, right? So if we were to play a C major scale, here's a C on the A string, 3rd fret. Whether I were to use a shape or go up one string, any version of a C major scale, any string, any pattern, any shape, the notes should all be the same, always, same 7 notes. And a 2-5-1 means we're going to find the 2nd note, the 5th note, and the 1st note, and put the appropriate chords on top of them. So in the case of the 2 chord, or the 2 note, right, if we go through all these notes and find note 2, 1, 2, it's a D, and the 2 chord in a standard key is always a minor chord, or if you want to do the slightly bigger version of the chord, a D minor 7. So either a D minor or a D minor 7. And whether you do it with bar chords or an open D minor chord, it's any version of a D minor chord or a D minor 7 chord that you want to do. I'm going to do all these examples with bar chords, just to show you how the patterns can be easily moved around. But D minor or D minor 7, that's our 2 chord in the key of C. For 5, we find the 5 or 5th note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which in this case is G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, G. And the 5 chord in a regular standard major key is always either major or dominant 7. So either G major or a G7 is the shorthand way of saying G dominant 7. So a G major chord, regular standard bar chord, or an open G chord, or G7, open G7. So any version of a G or a G7 that you might want to try anywhere on the fretboard would be the 5 chord. And then the 1 chord, which in the key of C is C, the very first note. And the 1 chord is always major, C major, or the bigger 4-note version of the chord is C major 7. So altogether, if I were to play those 3 chords, 2, 5, 1, with the, let's say, the smaller versions of the chords, we have D minor, G major, and C. If I did it with the bigger versions, minor 7, dominant 7, and major 7, same chord progression, but the chords get a little more colorful, a little more jazzed up. So here's D minor 7, G dominant 7, C major 7. Oops, sorry. Chord cutting out a little bit. So that's our 2-5-1. Now, if you look at the pattern that we've created here, right, we went from the 2 on the A string, 5th fret, down to the E string, 3rd fret, to the A string, 3rd fret. Following that root note. That pattern that we created, or this little shape, landing here on the 1, will always be the same. You can move this anywhere. If I took the same idea, and let's just start random, let's start here, just to say the 9th fret, just to try it. So I landed here, this is our new 1, this is an E. So this is a 2, 5, 1 in the key of E now. Minor or minor 7, major or dominant 7, major or major 7. So if you remember that little pattern of chords, almost as if it was a scale shape, you can put this 2-5-1 chord progression anywhere you want to. And that's something that's really common to do, is to move around different 2-5s or 2-5-1s. So for example, if we were to do the one I just did in E, so it's starting here at the 9th fret with the minor chord, down to the 7th fret with the dominant chord, and then here's that E, the one that we landed on. A really cool, typical way of kind of moving through multiple 2/5s would be to do 2, 5, and then where the 1 is, instead of actually playing that 1 major chord, starting a new 2/5 from that spot. So you have 2, 5, go right to where the major 1 chord would have been, but start another minor chord. That's the new 2 of a new key. 2, 5, and now again, another 2, 5, 2, 5. And then at some point, if you want to land on a major chord, and finally resolve to a real 1, that kind of gives you your home base where you landed and said, I made it to the end. So I'm coming just a little closer so you can see this. Just as an example, I'm going to start all the way down here at the 14th fret with a 2 minor chord, minor 7. It's B minor 7. Move up to the 5 chord, E dominant 7. And now this is where the 1 major chord would be, A major or A major 7. But instead of doing that, I'm going to go to a minor chord again and start a new 2/5 and just keep connecting them over and over and over again. So you have 2, 5, a new 2, 5, a new 2, 5, a new 2, 5, a new 2, 5, 2, 5, and now I'm going to resolve to the 1, a major chord, finally, or the major 7. So it's a really cool way of going from key to key that's been used a lot, especially in jazz standards in particular. But it gives you a pretty cool way of practicing your bar chord connections. Just going, especially because this minor shape, right? When you do this minor shape, and then you move to the dominant, the 5 chord, it's basically the same shape, just everything moves up a set of strings. So you kind of just bounce it over, bounce it down, bounce it up, bounce it down, bounce it up, and just keep going until you finally say, here's a major chord to land on and resolve a new home base. And this is just one way of doing it, this idea of going 2, 5, and then doing a 2 again where the 1 would have been. That's just one way of doing it. You don't have to start your new 2/5 at that spot where the 1 would have been. You could do totally random places. You could have a 2, 5 over here, land on the 1 maybe, then do a 2/5 somewhere over here. I'm not putting any thought into this. I'm just kind of doing it random. Here's 1. Let's move over, and this time I won't resolve to a 1 chord, 2/5. Let's do another 2/5 somewhere else. Another 2/5 somewhere else. Somewhere else. Somewhere else. Somewhere else. And then resolve finally to a 1 chord. So it's a really cool way of kind of trickling down or up through your chords across the fretboard with these 2/5s or 2/5 1s when you want to resolve. So a 2/5 followed by another 2/5 followed by another 2/5, you're changing keys and you're never actually resolving until you finally go to that 1 chord. Now one thing that I should point out too is I showed you one pattern. I showed you a minor chord on the A string, a dominant or major chord on the E string, and then your home bass major chord, major or major 7, on the A string, this shape. So we started with our 2 chord on the A string. Now you could also have your 2 chord or your 2 note on the E string, which makes the whole pattern look a little bit different. And once you learn that pattern, you can do the same thing. You can move it anywhere. So for example, we used C originally. The 2 was D minor. We could go to this D on the E string and do this D minor or a D minor 7. And the G was the 5 chord, which would now be here, G or G7. And then the 1 or the C would be here. So now you have this pattern. You have 2, 5, 1, new set of shapes, new pattern. 2, 5, 1, major 7 or major. And you could do the same thing. You could do 2, 5, right where the 1 would be. You could start a new 2/5, start a new 2/5, or go random somewhere else. resolve. So a really cool little trick, a great way of practicing running your chords up and down the fretboard. And as I said in the beginning, it would be really helpful to check out the diatonic chords and chord progressions videos that I've done in the past, where there's a little more explanation and also some diagrams for these chords. But check out your 2-5-1s with one of those shapes that I just went through and see if you can make the changes. Good bar chord practice.